Well, of course, I've kind of refrained from making any commentary on the riots in the UK. For one thing, I don't live there. For another, I am not exactly somebody that is prone to knee-jerk reactions of any kind. So, um, following this whole these events which are going on over there, of course, it becomes evident that there are sociological underpinnings to all of this, which, of course, in the heat of the moment, are going to be ignored by all sides. But as Naomi Klein expressed it perfectly in one of her tweets, which then linked to an article which I'm partially going to share with you. Trickle-down economics fails, but trickle-down criminality works great. So, she links to a blog. I guess the owner of that blog is Nathan Tapley. And I'm going to post a link to that particular article so you can read the whole thing for yourself. But it is essentially, it addresses several points and in a satirical way, I might add. So, please don't take this the wrong way because it is essentially a mock letter. It is a mock letter to the parents of David Cameron. And I'm assuming you know who that is. If not, please look it up, okay? Dear Mr. and Mrs. Cameron, why did you never take the time to teach your child basic morality? As a young man, he was in a gang that regularly smashed up private property. All the links, by the way, are in this article, okay? So I would strongly suggest you read the entire article rather than just listening to me repeating it partially. As a young man, he was in a gang that regularly smashed up private property. We know that you were absent parents who left your child to be brought up by the school rather than taking responsibility for his behavior yourselves. The fact that he became a delinquent with no sense of respect for property of others can only reflect the fact that you are terrible, lazy human beings who failed even in teaching your own children the difference between right and wrong. We can only assume that his contempt for small business owners of Oxford is indicative of his wider values. This, of course, again, some people don't seem to understand what satire is, but, look it up, because that's basically what David Cameron is saying to these communities in which all this mess is happening, okay? Even worse, your neglect led him to fall in with a bad crowd. He became best friends with a young man who set fire to buildings. And there are others. There's Michael Gove, whose wet-lip rage was palpable on Newsnight last night. This is Michael Gove, who confused one of his houses with another one of his houses in order to avail himself of £7,000 of taxpayers' money to which he is not entitled. But of course, this is different. This doesn't show the naked greed of people stealing plasma TVs. Unless you're Gerald Kaufman, who broke parliamentary rules to get $8,000 worth of 40-inch flat-screen Bang & Olufsen TVs out of the taxpayer. Or Jeremy Hunt, who broke the rules to the tune of almost £20,000 on one property and £2,000 on the other. But it's all right, because he agreed to pay half the money back, not the full amount. It would be absurd to expect a public official to pay back the entire sum. that he took and to which he was not entitled. No, we'll settle for half. And as in any other field, what might have been considered embezzlement of $22,000 is overlooked. We know, after all, that David Cameron likes to give people a second chance. Fortunately, we have the Met Police to look after us. We'll ignore the fact that two of its senior officials have had to resign in the past 6 weeks amid suspicion of widespread corruption within the force. And of course, Mr. and Mrs. Cameron, your son is right. There are parts of society that are not just broken, they are sick, riddled with disease from the top down. So let me be clear about this. I'm not justifying or minimizing in any way what has been done by the looters over the past few nights. What I am doing, however, is expressing shock and dismay that your son and his friends feel themselves in any way to be guardians of morality in this country. Can they really bleat at others about criminality? Those who decided that when they broke the rules they themselves set up, they, on the whole, wouldn't face the consequences of their actions. And are they really surprised that this country's culture is swamped in greed, in the acquisition of material things, in a lust for consumer goods of the most base kind? Really? The last few days have revealed some truths, and some heartening truths. The fact that the riot cleanup crews had organized themselves before David Cameron even made time for a public statement is heartening. The fact that local communities came together to keep their neighborhoods safe when the police failed is heartening. The fact that there were peace vigils being organized even as the police tried to dissuade people of this is heartening. There is hope for this country, but we must stop looking upwards for it. The politicians are the ones leading the charge into the gutter. David Cameron was entirely right when he said, "It is a complete lack of responsibility in parts of our society, people allowed to think that the world owes them something, that their rights outweigh their responsibilities, and that their actions do not have consequences." He was more right than he knew. And to wrap up again once with this Naomi Klein Twitter quote, which led me to this article: "Trickle-down economics fails, but trickle-down criminality works great."